Hello and welcome to Nintendo Nightly, your Monday through Friday source for everything Nintendo. My name is Michael Cottrell, your host, and it's good to be podcasting again. I had stopped somewhere late in October, just work got really busy, everything else with the channel got horrendously busy. We moved offices for work, and the podcast has just fallen to the wayside. I think I may have bitten off a little more than I could chew with it being a video and audio podcast. So I'm going to take it down to just an audio podcast, favoring a more consistent podcast over, halfway doing them and hoping that I can get 2 or 3 up in a week. So let me know what you think of this structure, and eventually I'll get back to doing video. I think the vision for the podcast being an audio and visual adventure was a really nice thing, and I do see that in the future. It's just some of the equipment that I had, like the lavalier mic I was using, was got just terrible audio. The environment that I was in wasn't great for recording. So this is a mic that cuts a little bit more, and then as I can eventually save to buy those things and hopefully make enough doing this sort of stuff to buy a little time back, that stuff will come. So all the just watching or listening to this definitely helps. The video version will sometimes have gameplay footage and images to accompany what's being talked about, but you'll just lose my adorable face on the camera. Sorry about that. So today we have just got one big story for you this New Year's. Well, it might be big to some of you, and to the rest of you it's probably something you'll never experience. But if you've ever heard of a little game called Smash, it's a big game. It's a big game. Big game. Everybody loves it. Nintendo's All-Stars, brawling it out on your favorite stages, your favorite locales, from all the games that you remember playing as a child and growing up, and all the games that, even just games that are on the forefront or had just come out. A celebration of characters old and new, big and small, obscure and the largest characters that we know today. And so Smash 4 was it was a good game, acceptable by most, but didn't really capture the competitive appeal that Melee had. People are still, to this day, 15, 16, whatever, however many years it is now later, still playing Melee in tournament over these other games. Project M was a modification of Super Smash Bros. Brawl to try and kind of marry those two tournament scenes, the Brawl and the Melee, and it got its own sort of niche crowd. People liked it, but I think, just it being a mod, it was always sort of a weird thing, and eventually it got a cease and desist from Nintendo, so there's no updates or further work being put into it. But a couple days ago, we got the release of a Smash 4 mod that's essentially going under the banner of Melee HD, though they recently changed their name to 4XM. I would imagine probably to avoid some legal trouble. That's a name that you can kind of duck under. It's just like, it doesn't say anything. But I'm not sure. I'm not one of the developers, though it'd be cool to talk to them sometime. So after just a lot of work getting the Wii U to run this, you got to do a lot of stuff with the SD card, although I'm probably making it sound more complicated than it needs to be. All that stuff is in their Reddit, the 4XM subreddit, if you're looking to experience it for yourself. But this is essentially taking Smash 4, all the characters and stages, and bringing Melee physics and in some cases changing the attack properties of certain characters to make them work in this new physics setting. So you've got new characters that are exhibiting these new things, and then with the old characters actually reverted a lot of them back to their Melee status, which we've got a lot to say about. And at this point, I'd like to introduce my brother to you, who will be joining me on some of these podcasts. We used to do a different Nintendo podcast some time ago called We the People, and he hasn't been involved ever since I brought it back to this smaller thing that I could manage. So let's just start with the initial impressions, Matthew. Introduce yourself and tell us what you think about Melee HD.
So I think that Melee HD, it definitely, I like where it's at as far as like an initial, because from what I understand, it's a small project. There's only a few people working on it. It accomplishes what it sets out to do, which is create Smash 4 to be like Melee. which I'm okay with, because even you and I, as far as initial impression is concerned, we were having a lot of fun. I forgot how much fun Smash can be, how quickly paced a fighting game, how much mind games go into it, how much thought goes into it. So for me, it was the first time I've had an exhilarating experience with a new experience with Smash in quite some time, since Project M, since Melee. With that being said, however, there's just a few things that I would hope that they would work to improve on, or that they would change at some point. Just because, for me, why I really loved Project M is that at first, it seemed like it was just trying to be Melee with better graphics and more characters. What it eventually became was Melee with some direction. And what I mean by that, it was Melee with, hey, we understand this game had some flaws, but we're working to improve that experience, but then also take all of the existing characters that had certain flaws and make them the best versions of themselves. And so for me, that was great, because my favorite character is Donkey Kong. He's always been my favorite video game character. So for me, that's an example of, in Melee, he wasn't the worst character in the world, but he had some glaring issues. Things like his shield not covering his entire body, a plethora of moves that are completely useless. Whereas like you get Project M, and it's like not only are they taking some moves that were left out from like original games for this character, for instance, but they're also making him the best version of himself. What I'd like to see this Melee HD do differently, because there's characters like you play Bowser as like your second main character. I'm DK. One thing that found myself being a little frustrated with is that they brought back a number of moves and made him exactly the same character he was in Melee. And for me, it's just perplexing, because they actually had to change the animation for some of these moves. So it's like you actually put time and effort into making these characters worse. And that I don't understand. That's what I liked about Project M, though, again, is that it aspire to give you the Melee physics engine, but in a game that was better put together, where characters were more evenly matched. And so that's where, I was a little confused, because I don't really see the purpose in going back and reanimating character models and moves to actually make them worse. And so that's where I would say I would hope that they would continue to improve upon or do something a little different, because I understand people loving Melee, but it doesn't mean we just want Melee with better graphics. I mean, because if it's the same game as Melee, why wouldn't I just play Melee? So that's where I'll leave it for me right now. What are your initial thoughts?
So yeah, that's definitely the same problem that I share with the game, or with the mod rather. There's this sort of splintering of the Smash community that's been happening, where at certain Smash 4 events, people have been booed off the stage, or players just chanting Melee while Smash 4 is going on. Just kind of discredit that community. And while I totally agree Melee is the superior game to be played in tournament, I don't think that it was a perfect game. And sometimes nostalgia can kind of blur us, and we can have some Melee colored glasses and think that everything in Melee was perfect, where the game, it was kind of became this competitive juggernaut a little bit by mistake. There were certain exploits that the developers knew were in the game. They let it exist, and a lot of that grew into the techniques that we know and love today. But some of the other things were, most characters in Melee have, probably 6 to 8 moves that are either incredibly situational or just flat out useless. Star Fox's forward air is this multi-hit move that doesn't really do anything. In like a casual setting, it probably would have done something, but the physics and the mechanics of Melee just didn't really make it, didn't have it make any sense. And when they, made Smash games later on, they had sort of resolved sort of these things, where there's other characters where they don't really have a useless move in their arsenal. And so when you put those characters next to each other, it's, I don't know, just characters like Donkey Kong really show their age. Not to mention they kind of went back to more stiff looking animations, because that's how it looked in Melee. But the reason it looked more stiff in Melee was just lack of technical polish, not necessarily that it was a design choice to make his moveset really stiff. But with that negative stuff being out of the way, the rest of it is fantastic, and what they've been able to accomplish in just making this physics engine work is a dream come true. I remember playing Smash 4, there's the character customization moves that you can get, and some of them would decrease the amount of input lag or lag that after you would land an aerial move on the ground. And so this was a staple of Smash 64 and Super Smash Bros. Melee because it enabled really the usefulness of any aerial move that you could work into a combo by canceling half of the lag that would happen on the ground. And if you're unfamiliar with the concept, you could think about it like this, like Mario is throwing a punch in the air, and without the L canceling that they put in the game, it would take, let's say, a second. And with the L canceling with a timed button press, it would take half that time. So it brings a new life into all these moves that were previously way too risky to ever incorporate in a competitive setting. The other thing that they were able to do is edit some of the stages. So Smash 4 had this Omega stage feature where they would transform any stage into a more competitively viable stage by essentially just flattening it out and making it a flat plane. Smash 4, the 4XM mod, goes a step further and actually rebrands some of these stages. So we have the Donkey Kong stage that actually incorporates some platforms into the mix and some variety that we haven't seen before. And in the Pokemon Stadium stage, they're able to just turn off the hazards instead of making a flat version of the stage. And that's something that it was a huge bit of criticism that I had of Smash 4, that they just didn't really understand how competitive Smash worked or how competitive players like to play the game, when they could have, I mean, they threw an event with them. They could have asked them like what they like about competitive Smash and try to like meet them halfway. And that's really the biggest thing with Smash 4 is like, I don't fault Brawl as much from a design perspective because it was meant to be casual and it just hit that casual note really well. But for Smash 4, it does neither of those things very well. So it's just this kind of, I don't know, it's still, I mean, Smash 4 is still a fantastic game, don't get me wrong, but this mod really tightens the screws on what made Smash wonderful, that it really rewarded you for predicting what a player is going to do, or to really just kind of plan a trap with whatever projectiles and tool set your character had. And so I have, with those criticisms aside, even if you kind of hate the way that they redid some of those Melee characters, there's still probably 30 or so characters that are completely new, and you can find a lot of joy in just getting to know their moves and how they play. I love how they made Mega Man. Wave dashing makes his moveset just shine a little bit more, and Sonic, they changed a bunch of his moves where he actually feels fast. It's weird that like in Smash 4, Sonic runs fast, but everything else he does is incredibly slow. Like as soon as you jump in the air, he's incredibly slow. Doing physical attacks in the air is really slow, and he actually feels quick and nimble in this game. And so I hope that they give that level of redesign to all the characters that need it. And I hope that this mod goes well. I hope that they don't get cease and desisted as the Project M one did. So we'll see how it goes. We'll check back in on it every time there's a big update and just kind of share that information with you. But that'll do it for this episode of Nintendo Nightly. I think most episodes won't be this long. I just have a mostly love, a little bit of hate relationship with the Smash Brothers series, and it's probably the series I've sunk the most time into overall. So I'll be back in your feed tomorrow with some more Nintendo goodness. Until then, stay saucy. Nintendo Nightly is a product of the Bento Block, produced right here in Atlanta, Georgia by me, Michael Cottrell, with some help from my twin brother, Matthew Cottrell. I want to give a huge shout out to my friend Loader. You can check out his YouTube channel. He is the one who graciously provided this music. Thank you so much for having such a loose policy with your music. It really helps those of us who are just getting started. So If you end up listening to this, thank you. And if you are interested in some awesome 8-bit remixes, check out his channel. The link is in the description of the podcast notes or YouTube channel. If you like this content, let me know what you think of it, what kind of critiques and improvements you have for me. And yeah, let's just get a conversation started. What do you think of Melee HD and Smash mods in general? Do you think that they're divisive, or do you think that Nintendo should embrace that and learn from them? I'd love to know what you think. So I'll see you in the comments, and I'll see you tomorrow.